You want to know what terrifies a Ghax warrior? It is not the screaming void of space. It is not the plasma storms that can melt our ships into slag. It is not even the legendary void krakens that hunt in the deep black between stars. No. What terrifies us is the moment when a human smiles at you while you are holding a blade to their throat. My name is Vorth Killaxe, second claw of the Ghax Imperium, and I have seen things that would make lesser species weep blood. I have conquered 17 star systems. I have personally executed over 300 enemy commanders. I have never in my 47 years of warfare encountered anything as absolutely mind-numbingly insane as the species called humans. The first time I heard about them, I laughed. Actually laughed. The intelligence report sat on my command desk like a joke someone had written to waste my time. Small bipedal mammals from Sol 3, it read. Average height 1.8 meters, no natural armor, no claws, no venom sacs, no enhanced strength modifications, military assessment, negligible threat. I should have known better. I should have remembered that the universe has a sick sense of humor. The day everything changed started like any other. Our invasion fleet hung in space above their homeworld like a collection of metal death 500 ships strong. Each vessel carried enough firepower to glass a continent. Our strategy was simple, elegant, and had worked on 43 previous worlds. Overwhelming force, swift victory, minimal Ghax casualties. Commander Bracktooth, my superior, stood at the bridge's center, his forearms crossed in satisfaction. Look at their pathetic defenses, Vorth, he said, gesturing at the tactical display. Primitive chemical rockets, metal hulls with no energy shielding. They will surrender within the hour. That was mistake number one. Assuming humans would surrender? The humans had maybe 50 ships defending their world. Tiny things, really. Fragile-looking constructs of steel and ceramic that looked like they might fall apart if you sneezed on them. Our smallest frigate could have taken on 5 of their largest vessels and won without breaking a sweat. Shall I open communications and demand their surrender? Asked Lieutenant Scar, our communications officer. His 3 eyes gleamed with anticipation. By all means, Bracktooth replied. Let us be civilized about this. The human who answered our call was a female with short brown hair and eyes the color of Earth's sky. She wore a simple uniform with minimal decorations. No intimidating spines, no battle scars, no visible weapons. She looked ordinary, harmless, even. This is Admiral Martinez of the Terran Defense Fleet, she said in perfect galactic standard. I assume you are here to surrender. The bridge fell silent. Even our battle-hardened crew was stunned by the sheer audacity of the statement. Bracktooth's mandibles clicked in amusement. I believe you misunderstand the situation, human. We are the Ghax Imperium. We have 500 warships. You have 50. The mathematics are quite simple. Admiral Martinez nodded thoughtfully. You are right about the math being simple. 50 human ships against 500 Ghax vessels. She paused and something flickered in her eyes. Something that made my spine ridges tingle with unease. The question is, do you have enough ships? That was when I first heard it. Human laughter. It was not the chittering amusement of the Ghax, or the harmonic resonance of the Kelthani. It was something altogether different. Something that suggested they knew something we did not. Amusing, Bracktooth said. Begin the attack. Target their military installations first. Show them the futility of resistance. Our first wave launched. 200 fighters screamed toward Earth's defense grid, their weapons charging with enough energy to level mountains. The human ships moved to intercept, and that was when we learned our second lesson about humans. They do not fight like any other species in the galaxy. Most civilized races engage in warfare with a certain protocol. You maintain formation, you target strategic locations, you follow the established rules of engagement that have governed galactic conflict for millennia. Humans apparently never got that memo. Their ships moved like living things, weaving through our formations in patterns that made no tactical sense. They fired at seemingly random targets. They rammed our vessels. They actually rammed them with their own ships. Who does that? What are they doing? Scar asked, his voice pitched high with confusion. Their tactics make no sense. They are sacrificing ships for no strategic gain. But that was not true. There was a method to their madness, though it took us precious minutes to understand it. Every random target they hit was actually part of a larger pattern. Every suicide run disrupted our formations, just enough to create gaps. Every seemingly suicidal maneuver was calculated to cause maximum chaos. Within 30 minutes we had lost 40 fighters to 50 human ships. Impossible, Ricktooth muttered, his 4 eyes fixed on the tactical display. Their ships are inferior. Their weapons are weaker. How are they doing this? That was when Admiral Martinez opened communications again. Having trouble? She asked sweetly. Maybe you should have brought more ships. The tone, the casual confidence, the complete lack of fear in the face of overwhelming odds. It was then I began to understand what we were dealing with. These humans were not civilized. Ricktooth's face turned the deep purple of Ghax rage. All ships, attack formation, Crec 7. I want that planet burning within the hour. Our entire fleet surged forward. 500 warships moving in perfect synchronization, their weapons charging for a coordinated strike that would end this farce once and for all. That was when the humans showed us their third surprise. The asteroid belt behind their planet moved. What we had assumed were floating rocks were actually ships. Hundreds of them, hidden among the debris, their engines cold, their weapons powered down, waiting. Stealth ships? Ricktooth's voice cracked. But our sensors showed no artificial signatures. That's because they are not stealth ships, I said quietly, studying the readings. They are asteroid mining vessels, converted civilian craft. The implications hit the bridge like a physical blow. These humans had turned their own industrial infrastructure into a weapon. They had militarized their entire asteroid belt. And then, just to make things interesting, their planet's moon opened up and started shooting at us. The moon is artificial, Lieutenant Scar screamed. It is a massive weapon platform. Not artificial. Converted. These insane mammals had turned their own satellite into a fortress. The battle that followed was unlike anything in recorded galactic history. Human ships swarmed our formations like angry insects, their converted mining equipment proving surprisingly effective at tearing through our armor. The moon bombarded us with weapons that had been disguised as scientific installations. Even their space stations joined the fight, launching themselves at our ships like massive missiles. But the worst part, the thing that truly shook me to my core, was the communication chatter we intercepted from their ships. They were laughing. In the middle of a desperate battle for their homeworld's survival, facing odds of 10 to 1, watching their ships explode around them, the humans were laughing, cracking jokes, making casual conversation like they were on a recreational flight. Nice shot, Rodriguez. One pilot called out as his wingman destroyed a Ghax destroyer. Thanks. Hey, anyone else getting hungry? This is taking longer than I thought, came the reply. There's a great pizza place near the lunar base. Assuming we survive this, first round's on me. A third voice chimed in. Pizza. They were talking about food while fighting for their lives. I began to understand why the intelligence report had labeled them as negligible threat. Whoever wrote that assessment had made the same mistake we all made. They had evaluated humans by civilized standard. Humans, it turned out, were not civilized. They were something far more dangerous. They were survivors. The battle raged for 6 hours. By the end, we had lost nearly half our fleet. The humans had lost most of theirs. But they had achieved their objective. Earth remained unbroken, and our invasion force was in shambles. Withdraw, Ricktooth finally ordered, his voice hollow with defeat. Regroup at the edge of the system. As our battered fleet limped away from Earth, Admiral Martinez opened communications one final time. Her ship was crippled, venting atmosphere, but she was still smiling. Nice try, she said. Feel free to come back any time. We will be waiting. The retreat to our staging area took 12 hours. 12 hours of silence as our demoralized crew tried to process what had happened. We had been outsmarted, outfought, and humiliated by a species that should not have been able to challenge us. But that was only the beginning. The humans, you see, had learned something about us during that battle. They had studied our tactics, analyzed our technology, and reached a conclusion that would haunt the Ghax Imperium for years to come. We were not invincible. Within a month, human ships began appearing in Ghax space. Not warships. Oh no, that would have been too conventional. These were converted civilian vessels. Cargo haulers turned into missile platforms, passenger liners retrofitted with mining lasers, even tourist ships armed with improvised weapons. They struck fast, hit hard, and vanished before our response fleets could arrive. They targeted supply convoys, communication relays, fuel depots. Nothing was too small or too insignificant. They turned our own infrastructure against us, using our trade routes as highways for their raiders. And always, they were laughing. I was assigned to hunting these raiders, the task that proved to be an exercise in frustration. How do you fight an enemy that refuses to follow the rules? How do you predict the actions of a species that seems to delight in doing the impossible? That was how I ended up face to face with Captain Sarah Kim, the human raider who had been making my life miserable for 3 months. We had finally cornered her ship in the Nexus sector, a region of space littered with dead worlds and broken dreams. Her vessel, a converted merchant freighter she had named Murphy's Revenge, was trapped between my battlecruiser and an asteroid field with no way out. Or so I thought. The human had other ideas. Instead of surrendering, as any rational being would have done, she launched her ship directly at my cruiser, not at my weapons or engines. At the bridge. She's going to ram us. Lieutenant Scar screamed. Impossible, I replied. That would be suicide. Sir, our weapons officer called out. She's launching escape pods. That was when I understood. Captain Kim was not trying to ram us. She was using her ship as a massive missile while her crew escaped in the pods. And since our shields were designed to stop energy weapons, not multi-thousand-ton chunks of metal traveling at significant fractions of light speed, the impact nearly tore my ship in half. When the emergency lights stopped flashing and the deck stopped shaking, I found myself standing in the wreckage of my bridge, surrounded by twisted metal and the groans of my injured crew. The forward view screen was cracked, sparks flew from damaged consoles, and somewhere in the distance, I could hear the sound of hull breaches being sealed. Damage report, I called out. Engines offline. Weapons offline. Communications offline, Scar replied, his voice weak. We are dead in space, sir. That was when she walked through the hole in our hull. Captain Sarah Kim was smaller than I had expected. She wore a simple pressure suit with a cracked helmet, and her dark hair was matted with sweat. In her hand she carried a Ghax ceremonial blade, probably taken from one of our ships she had captured. Well, she said, looking around at the destruction. The mighty Vorth Killaxe. You are shorter than I expected. I tried to reach for my sidearm, but my left arm was trapped under a fallen beam. Around me, my crew lay unconscious, or worse. We were helpless. Captain Kim walked slowly toward me, the blade glinting in the emergency lighting. She moved with the casual confidence of someone who had been in this situation before. Many times. You know, she said conversationally, you have been quite the pain in my rear for the past few months, chasing me across half the galaxy, disrupting my operations, generally making my life difficult. She stopped directly in front of me and raised the blade to my throat. The metal was cold against my neck and I could feel the sharp edge pressing against my scales. Any last words? She asked, tilting her head slightly. I looked into her eyes and saw something that chilled me more than the blade at my throat. She was not angry, she was not afraid, she was amused. Like this entire situation was some kind of elaborate joke. And suddenly, despite everything, despite the pain and the humiliation and the certainty of death, I found myself smiling. Yeah, I said. You are holding it wrong. Captain Kim blinked. Excuse me? The blade, I explained, my smile widening. You are holding it wrong? That's a Ghax honor blade. The sharp edge is supposed to face away from the target. You are holding it backwards. For a moment she just stared at me. Then she looked down at the weapon in her hand, turning it slightly to examine the edge. That moment of distraction was all I needed. I might have been trapped, but I was not helpless. My right arm was still free, and 47 years of combat had taught me a few things about improvisation. The debris around me included several chunks of shattered metal, each one sharp enough to cut through human flesh. I grabbed the nearest piece and swung it in a wide arc, aiming for her wrist. But Captain Kim was not there anymore. Somehow, impossibly, she had moved. Not just stepped back but actually dodged, rolling sideways and coming up in a combat crouch with the blade still in her hand. And she was laughing again. "Nice try," she said, grinning. "But you are thinking like a Ghax. All direct attacks and overwhelming force. Humans learned a long time ago that sometimes the best way to win a fight is to not be where your opponent expects you to be." She stood up slowly, and I noticed something that made my blood run cold. The blade was no longer in her hand backwards. She had corrected her grip during the dodge and now held it properly. "Thanks for the tip about the blade, by the way," she added. "Very educational." That was when I realized the terrible truth. She had not been holding it wrong by accident. She had been testing me. The silence that followed stretched between us like a taut wire ready to snap. Captain Sarah Kim stood there, blade held properly now, studying me with those unsettling human eyes. I could see my reflection in her helmet visor, and what I saw was not the proud Ghax warrior I had always believed myself to be. I saw prey. "You planned this," I said, the words scraping past my throat like broken glass. "The entire raid. The chase. Getting cornered here. All of it." Her smile widened, and I noticed something that made my spine ridges flatten against my back in involuntary fear. Her teeth were perfectly white, perfectly straight, and far too sharp for a supposedly herbivorous species. "Oh, Vorth," she said, using my name like we were old friends. "You still don't get it, do you? This isn't about you. This was never about you." She gestured around at the wreckage of my bridge, at my unconscious crew, at the gaping hole in my ship's hull where her freighter had punched through like a fist through paper. "This is about sending a message." Before I could ask what kind of message, the lights went out. Emergency power kicked in a moment later, bathing everything in hellish red light. But those few seconds of absolute darkness had been enough. When I could see again, Captain Kim was gone. Not vanished. Gone. As if she had simply stepped out of existence. "Impossible," I muttered, struggling to free my trapped arm. "Humans don't have teleportation technology." "No," came her voice from somewhere in the darkness behind me. "But we do have something your people never developed." "What?" I demanded, craning my neck to try and spot her. "Imagination." The blade kissed my throat again, but from a completely different angle. She had circled around behind me somehow, moving through the wreckage without making a sound. "You see, Vorth, your people are predictable. Strong. Yes. Technologically advanced, absolutely. But predictable. You think in straight lines. Direct attacks. Overwhelming force. It works great against other civilized species." Her voice was conversational, almost friendly, but the blade at my throat never wavered. "Humans learned to think differently. We had to. We evolved on a world that was actively trying to kill us every single day. Predators, diseases, natural disasters, ice ages, asteroid impacts. Our entire species is the product of 4 billion years of survivors who got creative when the traditional approaches failed." "What do you want?" I asked. "I want you to deliver a message to your superiors." "What message?" The blade withdrew from my throat, and I heard her moving around to face me again. When she came back into view, she was holding something else in her other hand. A small device I didn't recognize. "Tell them that this war is over." I would have laughed if my situation hadn't been so dire. One human with a blade thinks she can end a galactic war? One human with a blade and a very large bomb. My blood turned to ice water. "What?" She held up the device, and now I could see what it was. A detonator. Military grade by the look of it. "You didn't think I rammed your ship just to have a conversation, did you? While you were unconscious, my crew and I planted a few surprises throughout your vessel. Fusion charges. Enough to turn this entire sector into a brief, bright star. You are bluffing." "Am I?" She tilted her head again. That unsettling gesture that made her look like a predator sizing up its prey. "Let me ask you something, Vorth. In all your years of warfare, have you ever encountered a species willing to sacrifice themselves just to make a point?" The answer came to me with horrible clarity. No, no civilized species would do such a thing. It was wasteful, illogical, which meant humans were not civilized. The charges are linked to my biosigns, she continued. If my heart stops, if my brain activity ceases, if I get too far from this ship, boom. Your battle cruiser, my crew, me, you and everything within a 50-kilometer radius gets converted into component atoms. That's suicide. That's evolution, baby. Her grin was absolutely terrifying. We didn't claw our way to the top of the food chain by playing it safe. She reached into a pouch on her suit and pulled out a small recording device. I'm going to record a message. You are going to deliver it to High Command. They are going to listen very carefully to what I have to say. And if I refuse, then we all become a very pretty light show. And the next human raider who captures a Ghax officer will ask the same questions. Humans are remarkably persistent that way. She activated the recording device, and suddenly her entire demeanor changed. The casual friendliness vanished, replaced by something cold and professional. Attention Ghax High Command. This is Captain Sarah Kim, Terran Defense Force Special Operations. I'm speaking to you from the bridge of the Ghax battle cruiser Bone Render, which is currently rigged to explode. She paused, letting that sink in. By now you have realized that your invasion of Earth was a mistake. What you haven't realized yet is just how big a mistake it was. You thought you were attacking a primitive world defended by inferior technology. What you actually did was pick a fight with 4 billion apex predators, who have been perfecting the art of warfare since before your species learned to make fire. Another pause. The silence was deafening. Here's what's going to happen. You are going to withdraw all Ghax forces from human space. You are going to return all captured human vessels and personnel. You are going to pay reparations for the damage you have caused. And you are going to sign a non-aggression pact guaranteeing that the Ghax Imperium will never again threaten human worlds. I couldn't help myself. That's impossible. The Imperium doesn't negotiate with inferior species. Captain Kim turned to look at me, her expression amused. Inferior? Why, their people just lost half a fleet to 50 human ships. Your most experienced battle commander is currently trapped under a beam while a monkey descendant holds a bomb to his head. How exactly does that make us inferior? She turned back to the recording device. In case you are thinking of refusing, let me explain something about human psychology. We hold grudges. We hold them for a very long time. We teach them to our children. We write songs about them. We build monuments to remember them. Her voice dropped to something barely above a whisper, but somehow it carried more menace than any shouted threat. If you refuse these terms, we will hunt you, not just your military, not just your colonies. Every Ghax in the galaxy will become a target. We will turn your trade routes into graveyards. We will make your homeworlds uninhabitable. We will pursue you to the edge of known space and beyond, because that's what humans do when someone threatens our home. She clicked off the recording device and looked at me expectantly. Well, will you deliver the message? What choice did I have? I was trapped, my ship was rigged to explode, and this insane human was holding all the cards. Yes. Good. She reached into another pouch and pulled out a small medical kit. Now let me get you out from under that beam. I stared at her in confusion. What? You are hurt. Probably have internal injuries from the impact. I need you alive to deliver the message, which means I need to patch you up. She knelt down and began examining the beam that had my arm pinned. This is going to hurt. Why are you helping me? Because despite what your propaganda says about us, humans aren't monsters. We don't torture prisoners. We don't execute the wounded. We fight hard, but we fight fair. She produced a small cutting tool and began slicing through the metal beam. Besides, I kind of like you, Vorth. You have got style. Not many Ghax would have thought to correct my blade grip while staring death in the face. The beam parted with a screech of tortured metal, and suddenly I could move my arm again. Pain shot through the limb like liquid fire, but I was free. Captain Kim immediately began treating my injuries with the efficiency of someone who had done this many times before. Her hands were gentle but sure as she bandaged the worst of the cuts and administered pain medication. There, she said when she was finished. That should hold you until you can get proper medical attention. I don't understand you, I said. You threaten to kill me, then you heal my wounds. You destroy my ship, then you show mercy. What kind of species are you? Complicated, she replied. We are pack hunters who form deep emotional bonds. We are territorial animals who welcome strangers into our homes. We are violent predators who cry at sad stories. We are walking contradictions, and that's what makes us dangerous. She helped me to my feet, supporting my weight as I swayed from blood loss and shock. Your people made the mistake of thinking that because we don't have claws or fangs or armored hide, we must be weak. But you forgot about this. She tapped her temple. Brains beat brawn every time intelligence trumps strength. And humans, we are really, really smart. Around us, the ship's emergency systems were struggling to maintain life support. The air tasted of smoke and ozone, and I could hear the distant sound of hull breaches being sealed. Your crew will be fine, Captain Kim said, noting my concern. Unconscious, but alive, we used stun charges, not lethal weapons. They will wake up with headaches and damaged pride, but they will live. Why? I asked. Why show mercy? Because this war doesn't have to be about genocide. It can be about teaching lessons instead. She looked around at the destruction. Consider this your education in human warfare tactics. Lesson 1, we don't fight fair. Lesson 2, we don't give up. Lesson 3, we always have a backup plan. What's the backup plan? Her smile returned, and once again I was reminded of a predator showing its teeth. You really want to know? Despite myself, I nodded. Every human ship in the galaxy just received the same orders. If I don't check in within 72 hours, they are to assume I'm dead and implement Protocol Omega. What's Protocol Omega? Total war. No prisoners, no mercy, no rules. Her voice was utterly calm, as if she was discussing the weather. Every Ghax ship becomes a target. Every Ghax colony becomes a battlefield. Every Ghax outpost becomes a crater. The implications hit me like a physical blow. You would commit genocide? If necessary. She shrugged. Humans are very good at extinction events. We have survived several. We have caused a few. It's all about motivation. She walked over to a damaged console and began working on it. Within moments, she had restored basic communications. There, she said. Now you can call for rescue. I'd recommend doing it quickly. This sector isn't exactly safe for disabled ships. What about you? Oh, I will be fine. My people are already on their way to pick me up. She checked a chronometer on her wrist. Should be here in about an hour. How? Your ship was destroyed. That wasn't my only ship. Her grin widened. Remember lesson 3. Always have a backup plan. As if summoned by her words, new contacts appeared on the damaged sensor display. 3 human ships, moving fast and silent through the asteroid field. Right on time, Captain Kim said with satisfaction. Gotta love military precision. The lead ship was another converted freighter, but this one bristled with weapons and armor plating. The other 2 were smaller, sleeker, built for speed and stealth. They moved through the debris field like they owned it. Pickup team, she explained. Standard operating procedure for deep insertion raids. How many of you are there? I asked. Humans? About 8 billion on Earth alone. Throw in the colonies, the mining stations, the exploration fleets. She paused to consider. Call it 10 billion, give or take. No, I meant raiders. Special forces. How many warriors like you? Her expression turned thoughtful. That's classified information. But I will give you a hint. Remember how many ships defended Earth during your invasion? 50. Those weren't all our ships. Those were just the ones we wanted you to see. She began gathering her equipment. The real defense fleet was hiding in the outer system, waiting to see if we needed backup. How many ships? Enough. She slung her gear bag over her shoulder. More than enough. The rescue ships were closing fast now. I could see docking tubes extending from the lead vessel, preparing to extract Captain Kim and her team. One last question, I said. Why Earth? Why fight so hard for one planet when you have colonies scattered across the galaxy? She stopped and turned to look at me. And for the first time since I'd met her, Her expression was completely serious. Because it's home, Vorth. It's where we came from. It's where our families live, where our children play, where our ancestors are buried. You can take our colonies. You can destroy our ships. You can even kill us. But you can never ever take our home. The docking tube connected with a solid thunk, and the airlock cycled open. Captain Kim's team began boarding the rescue ship, moving with practiced efficiency. "Deliver the message?" she called back to me as she reached the airlock. "And remember, humans are very good at keeping promises, both the good ones and the bad ones." The airlock sealed, the docking tube retracted, and within minutes the human ships had vanished back into the asteroid field as silently as they had come. I was alone on my crippled ship, surrounded by unconscious crew members, holding a recording that could either end a war or start an even bloodier one. And somewhere in the back of my mind, a terrible thought was beginning to form. What if the humans were right? What if this war really was over? What if we had already lost? The rescue took 18 hours. 18 hours floating in the wreckage of my command, watching my unconscious crew slowly wake up to the reality of our defeat. 18 hours to contemplate the recording device in my hand and the impossible choice it represented. 18 hours to realize that everything I thought I knew about warfare had just been proven catastrophically wrong. When the Ghax recovery fleet finally arrived, I was sitting in my command chair, staring at the hole where Captain Sarah Kim had punched through our hull. The rescue team found me there, still holding the recording device, still trying to process what had happened. Commander Killaxe, the rescue team leader, a young officer named Thorak, approached cautiously. "Sir, are you injured?" "No," I said quietly. "But I think our entire species might be." The journey back to High Command took 3 days. 3 days of writing reports that no one would believe. 3 days of trying to explain how a single human had outmaneuvered, outwitted, and ultimately defeated a seasoned Ghax battle commander without firing a shot. 3 days to dread what was coming next. At Ghax, High Command occupied the entire top level of the crystal spire on our homeworld of Ghaxia Prime. It was a monument to our military superiority, a gleaming tower that stretched toward the stars like a fist raised in defiance of the universe itself. I had always found it inspiring before. Now it just looked like a very tall grave marker. Supreme Commander Killaxe received me in the war chamber, a circular room dominated by a massive holographic display showing the current state of the galactic conflict. Red indicators marked human ships throughout Ghax space. Far too many red indicators. "Vorth," Killaxe said without looking up from the display, "I have read your report. Twice. I'm hoping you can explain to me how this is anything other than a complete fabrication." Supreme Commander Killaxe was old, even by Ghax standards. His carapace bore the scars of 100 battles, and his 4 eyes had seen the rise and fall of a dozen civilizations. He had personally conquered more worlds than any living Ghax, and his strategic genius was legendary throughout the Imperium. He was also, I was beginning to realize, about to learn what it felt like to be completely outclassed. "It's all true, sir," I said, placing the recording device on the central table. "Every word." Killaxe finally looked at me, and I saw something in his eyes I had never seen before. Uncertainty. "Play it," he ordered. I activated the device, and Captain Kim's voice filled the war chamber. The assembled High Command listened in perfect silence as she delivered her ultimatum, their expressions growing darker with each word. When the recording ended, the silence stretched like a blade being drawn slowly across metal. "Preposterous," General Ghax finally said. "A single human thinks she can dictate terms to the entire Ghax Imperium?" "She already has," I replied. "And she's not alone. According to my intelligence analysis, there are at least 50 more like her operating in our space right now." "Impossible," Admiral Rex interjected. "Our sensors would have detected a force that size." "Would they?" I asked. "Our sensors didn't detect the mining ships at Earth. They didn't detect the moon fortress. They didn't detect the backup fleet waiting in the outer system." I gestured at the holographic display. "How many of those red dots do you think are actually human warships? And how many are converted civilian vessels that we can't properly identify?" The question hung in the air like a poisonous cloud. "It doesn't matter," Supreme Commander Killaxe said finally. We don't negotiate with primitives. We certainly don't surrender to them. Then what do you propose? I asked. We end this farce, once and for all. Malix manipulated the holographic controls, and the display zoomed in on the Sol system. We assembled the entire Grand Fleet. Every ship, every weapon, every warrior in the Imperium. We return to Earth and reduce it to molten slag. That will require pulling our forces from 17 different sectors, General Ghax pointed out. It will leave our borders virtually undefended. For how long? Admiral Rex asked. 6 months, Killaxe replied. Maybe 8, depending on how much resistance they offer. And if other species decide to take advantage of our temporary weakness, then we will deal with them after we have finished exterminating humanity. I listened to this exchange with growing horror. They were talking about genocide, complete extinction of an entire species, and they were discussing it like it was a minor tactical decision. Sir, I said, with respect, I don't think you understand what we are dealing with. Killaxe's eyes fixed on me with laser intensity. Enlighten me. These humans, they are not like other species. They don't think like we do. They don't fight like we do. I struggled to find the right words. They are something entirely different. They are mammals, General Ghax said dismissively. Weak, soft, primitive mammals. What makes them so special? They evolved differently, I said. Their entire development was shaped by constant threat, predators, climate change, natural disasters, disease. They didn't evolve to be the strongest or the fastest or the most technologically advanced. They evolved to survive when everything else died. So they are not trying to beat us, sir. They are trying to make us extinct. The war chamber fell silent again. Explain, Killaxe ordered. I took a deep breath. Every other species we have conquered had something to lose. Colonies, trade routes, resources, territory. When we applied sufficient pressure, they surrendered because the cost of continued resistance became too high. I activated my personal datapad and projected my analysis onto the main display. Humans are different. Look at their response pattern. When we attacked Earth, they didn't try to protect their infrastructure. They turned it into weapons. When we destroyed their ships, they didn't retreat. They built more from scrap. When we captured their territories, they didn't negotiate. They went underground and started sabotage operations. The display showed a map of human resistance activities across Ghax space. It looked like a plague spreading through our territory. They are not fighting to win territory or resources, I continued. They are fighting to ensure that if they die, we die with them. That's not warfare. That's mutual extinction. Absurd, Admiral Rex said. No rational species would choose mutual destruction over surrender. Exactly, I replied. They are not rational. They are survivors. And survivors do whatever it takes to survive, including taking their enemies with them into oblivion. Supreme Commander Killaxe was studying the display with the intensity of a predator examining prey. But now I was beginning to wonder which of us was really the predator. How many humans are there? He asked quietly. 10 billion on Earth alone. Maybe 15 billion throughout their colonies. And how many of them are combatants? All of them. The words felt like poison leaving my mouth. According to Captain Kim, every human civilian has basic military training. Their entire species is essentially a reserve army. 15 billion soldiers, General Ghax whispered. It gets worse, I said. Their reproduction rate is higher than ours. Their maturation rate is faster. And according to our biological analysis, they can survive in environments that would kill most other species. I pulled up another display showing human colony worlds. Look at these locations. Toxic atmospheres, extreme temperatures, high radiation environments, worlds that we classified as uninhabitable. And humans are thriving there. What are you saying? Killaxe asked, though I could see in his eyes that he already knew. I'm saying that even if we win this war, even if we somehow manage to exterminate humanity, we might just be doing the universe a favor by removing their only natural predator. The silence that followed was deafening. That was when the alert started screaming. Incoming transmission, the communications officer announced. Priority Alpha. Source unknown. Put it through, Killaxe ordered. The holographic display flickered, and suddenly we were looking at a human, not Captain Kim, but someone else. An older male with gray hair and cold blue eyes, wearing a simple uniform with minimal decorations. "Greetings, Ghax High Command," he said in perfect galactic standard. "I am Admiral Chen Wang, commanding officer of the Terran Defense Force. I believe you have a message for us." The audacity was breathtaking. Somehow, impossibly, the humans had penetrated the most secure communication network in the galaxy and were speaking directly to our military leadership. "How did you," Admiral Rex began, "get through your security?" Admiral Wang smiled, and it was not a pleasant expression. Commander Killaxe's ship had some very interesting communication logs. It wasn't difficult to backtrack the signal to its source. "Impossible," General Ghax said. "Our encryption is unbreakable." "For most species, yes," Wang replied. "But humans have been breaking codes since before we had written language. We are very good at finding patterns in seemingly random data." Supreme Commander Killaxe leaned forward, his 4 eyes blazing with fury. "What do you want, human?" "I want to save lives," Wang said simply. "Yours and ours. Captain Kim gave you 72 hours to consider our terms. That was 60 hours ago. I'm here to collect your answer." "Here's our answer," Killaxe snarled. "The Ghax Imperium does not yield. We do not surrender. We do not negotiate with inferior species. We are mobilizing our entire Grand Fleet to return to your homeworld and finish what we started." "I see," Wang said. His expression didn't change, but something flickered in his eyes. Something that made my spine ridges flatten against my back. "How disappointing. And how predictable." "Predictable?" Killaxe's voice rose. "You think we are predictable?" "Supremely so. In fact, we have been counting on it." That was when the second set of alarms began shrieking. "Multiple contacts," the sensor officer shouted. Ships decloaking throughout the system. The tactical display lit up like a festival celebration. Red dots appeared by the dozens, then by the hundreds. Human ships. Everywhere. Around our homeworld. In our orbital shipyards. Near our defense platform. "How many?" Killaxe demanded. 2,000 ships, sir. And counting." "Impossible," Admiral Rex whispered. "We would have detected a fleet that size." "Would you?" Admiral Wang asked mildly. "Tell me how many asteroids are in this system." The horrible truth crashed over me like a collapsing star. "They have been here all along." "For weeks," Wang confirmed. "Disguised as space debris, powered down, waiting." "Did you really think Captain Kim was working alone?" Supreme Commander Killaxe's mandibles were clicking rapidly, a sign of extreme agitation. "What do you want?" "The same thing Captain Kim wanted. Withdrawal from human space. Return of captured personnel. Reparations. Non-aggression pact." "And if we refuse?" Admiral Wang's smile returned, colder than the void between stars. "Then we implement Protocol Omega. We won't be intimidated by empty threats," Killaxe said, but I could hear the uncertainty in his voice. "Empty threats?" Wang laughed, and the sound was like ice cracking under pressure. "Commander Killaxe, would you say our threats are empty?" All eyes turned to me. I thought about Captain Kim, about the fusion charges rigged throughout my ship, about the casual way she had discussed mutual annihilation. "No, sir," I said quietly. "I would not." "What's your assessment of human capabilities?" Wang asked. I looked around the war chamber at the assembled leadership of the most powerful military force in the galaxy and realized that they were all waiting for my answer. "Honestly," I said, "I think we are all going to die." The silence that followed was broken only by the steady chirping of proximity alarms as more human ships continued to decloak around our homeworld. "Protocol Omega," Admiral Wang said, his voice conversational again, "is not actually about destroying your species. It's about making you irrelevant." "Explain," Killaxe ordered. "Simple. We are going to do to you what you tried to do to us. We are going to conquer your worlds, occupy your territories, and assimilate your population into our growing interstellar civilization. The other species will never allow it. General Ghax protested. Other species? Wang's smile widened. You mean like the Kelthani Federation? They signed a mutual defense pact with humanity 3 days ago. Or perhaps you mean the Zephyrian Republic. They are currently negotiating exclusive trade agreements with Earth. I felt the blood drain from my face. How? Diplomacy, Wang said simply. Turns out most species don't actually like being conquered by militaristic empires. When we offered them protection in exchange for cooperation, they were remarkably receptive. You are forming an alliance, I whispered. We are forming a new galactic order, one based on cooperation instead of conquest, trade instead of tribute, and mutual defense instead of mutual destruction. Supreme Commander Killaxe was gripping his command chair so tightly that his claws were leaving marks in the metal. What about us? You have a choice, Wang said. Join the new order as equals, with all the rights and responsibilities that entails, or remain outside it, isolated and alone, watching as the galaxy moves on without you. And if we choose to fight, then you will lose? Wang's voice was utterly matter-of-fact. Not because we are stronger than you, though we might be. Not because we are smarter than you, though we probably are. You will lose because we have already won. What do you mean? Look around you, Supreme Commander. How many of your allies are left? How many species still fear the Ghax Imperium more than they fear being conquered by it? The terrible truth was written on every face in the war chamber. We were alone. Our empire of fear and intimidation had finally encountered something that couldn't be intimidated. The age of conquest is over, Admiral Wang continued. Evolution has moved on. Cooperation beats competition. Alliance beats empire. And humans? His smile turned predatory. Humans are very good at evolution. Supreme Commander Killaxe sat in his chair for long minutes, processing the impossible reality that had just been presented to him. Around him, the leadership of the Ghax Imperium waited for his decision. Finally he spoke. Terms, he said. Full withdrawal from all occupied human worlds within 30 days. Return of all captured personnel and equipment. Repair is equal to twice the cost of reconstruction. And a binding non-aggression pact, guaranteed for 50 years. Those terms are unacceptable, Admiral Rex protested. Then counteroffer, Wang said. Complete withdrawal from human space within 60 days, Killaxe said slowly. Return of personnel and equipment. Reparations equal to reconstruction costs. Non-aggression pact for 25 years. 50 days. 1.5 times reconstruction costs 40 years. Done. And just like that, the war was over. Not with a glorious battle or a dramatic last stand. Not with the clash of mighty fleets, or the thunder of orbital bombardment. With a negotiation, a compromise. A handshake between civilized beings. It was the most human victory imaginable. As the communication ended and the human ships began powering down their weapons, I found myself thinking about Captain Sarah Kim and her casual comment about humans being walking contradictions. She had been right. They were violent predators who preferred peace, territorial animals who welcomed cooperation, survivors who chose diplomacy over destruction when given the choice. They were everything the Ghax Imperium was not. And that, I realized, was exactly why they had won. 3 months later, I found myself on Earth serving as a military liaison in the new Galactic Cooperation Council. It was ironic, really. The warrior who had tried to conquer humanity was now working to help build the peace. The humans seemed to find this amusing rather than insulting. They had offered me the position personally through Captain Kim, who had apparently recommended me for the job. You learn fast, she had said when I accepted. And you are honest about your mistakes. Those are valuable qualities in a diplomat. I was walking through the gardens outside the council building when I encountered her again. She was sitting on a bench feeding small earth creatures called birds with crumbs from her lunch. Commander Killaxe, she said without looking up. How are you enjoying Earth? It's different than I expected, I said, settling onto the bench beside her. More peaceful. Peace is our natural state, she said. We only fight when we have to. I'm beginning to understand that. I watched the birds for a moment, marveling at their delicate beauty. On Ghaxia Prime we would have seen them as prey, Here they were simply part of the landscape. Can I ask you something? Sure. That day on my ship, when you had the blade to my throat, were you really prepared to die? She considered the question seriously. Yes. If it meant saving my people, yes. But you had so much to live for. Family, friends, a whole life ahead of you. Exactly, she said, turning to look at me with those unsettling human eyes. That's what made the threat credible. A species that has nothing to lose isn't really threatening, but a species that has everything to lose and is still willing to risk it all. That's terrifying. She scattered the last of her crumbs and stood to leave. Humans don't want to be the strongest species in the galaxy. Vorth, we just want to make sure that if anyone tries to wipe us out, they will have to pay a price so high that they will think twice about trying. As she walked away, I found myself smiling. For the first time since this whole affair began, I was actually looking forward to the future. After all, if you can't beat them, you might as well join them. And humans, as I was learning, were very good at making allies out of former enemies. It was just another contradiction in a species full of them. And somehow that made perfect sense.